If you want to understand why you keep missing putts, you might want to stop obsessing over the slope of the green and, well, start looking at your watch.
Absolutely. Because according to the data, the break of a putt isn't actually dictated by the hill itself. It's dictated by time.
Right, and we're exploring this today in our deep dive into the puddleized system. Because the moment you realize that break is a function of time, I mean, the entire geometry of the putting green fundamentally changes in your mind.
It completely flips the script on how you see the game.
And I've spent years covering elite tournaments, analyzing performance trends and dissecting what separates a weekend amateur from a tour professional. And usually when we talk about improving in sports, we look for visible mechanical adjustments.
Sure, cause and effect.
Yeah, exactly. Like you want to hit a tennis ball harder, you change your grip, you want to drive a golf ball further, you tweak your swing path, you check your launch monitor, adjust your attack angle. It's very mechanical.
It's mapped out in high-speed video. It's all highly measurable.
But then, you step onto the putting green and suddenly that clear analytical worldview just vanishes. For so many players, putting is shrouded in this frustrating, almost mystical fog. You're told to just feel the green.
Right, trust your instincts.
Yeah.
Rely on some innate artistry.
Exactly. But that romanticized idea of feel is the exact reason players stagnate. Because, well, feel is a moving target.
It fluctuates constantly based on how you slept, your stress levels, the humidity.
The time of day.
Exactly. If you're relying on an internal feeling to judge the speed of a green, you are building your entire golf game on a foundation of sand.
Which brings us to the mission for today's deep dive. We're looking at a fascinating stack of research and coaching materials focused entirely on this data-driven puddleized system.
And it's a game changer.
The big promise here, the objective of this entire methodology we're looking at, is to completely demystify distance control on the greens. We are putting out of the realm of dark arts and subjective guessing and shifting it into a trainable, measurable skill.
And the data across these sources suggest that mastering this system can save you at least one stroke per round.
Which is huge, saving one stroke per round strictly through distance control. For anyone who plays the game, that's the difference between keeping your momentum alive and spiraling into a frustrating back nine.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate stabilizer for your scorecard.
So I really want to interrogate these claims today. I'm bringing my skepticism as an analytical journalist, and I know you're bringing a perspective of data-driven coaching and the pure physics of the game.
I'm ready. Let's get into it.
The puddleized materials insist that before we even look at a putter or a golf ball, we have to objectively define green speed. And they don't mean defining it by rubbing the grass or, looking at the grain.
No, they mean defining it through cold, hard physics. If we're going to eliminate feel, we have to replace it with an objective baseline. In the context of this system, green speed isn't just an adjective like fast or slow. It's a precise scientific description of exactly how far a golf ball rolls on a specific surface when a consistent, measured amount of energy is applied to it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think a lot of players romanticize that pre-putt routine. They step onto the green, take a couple of practice strokes, look at the hole, and just kind of vibe it out.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
But relying purely on feel for distance control is essentially like trying to bake a really complex pastry without using measuring cups. You're just standing in the kitchen, throwing flour into a bowl, guessing the weight by how heavy it feels in your hand.
And praying the cake rises.
Exactly.
Well, the baker who guesses the flour weight is going to end up with a wildly inconsistent cake. And the golfer who guesses the friction of the grass is going to have wildly inconsistent distance control. This is why the puddleized system relies heavily on a tool called a Stimp meter.
I see the Stimp meter mentioned everywhere in these coaching materials. For the listener who hasn't seen one, how does it actually give us that objective measurement?
The beauty of the Stimp meter is its absolute simplicity. It's essentially a standardized, calibrated aluminum ramp. You place a golf ball in a specific notch at the top.
Okay, simple enough.
Then you slowly lift one end of the ramp, and at a precise, fixed angle, usually around 20 degrees, gravity pulls the ball out of the notch. It rolls down the ramp and out onto a flat section of the green.
So the energy applied to the ball is mechanically identical every single time it leaves the ramp.
Exactly. Zero human influence. The distance that the ball rolls from the end of the ramp to where it stops measured in feet is your Stimp value.
So if it rolls 10 feet,
the green has a Stimp reading of 10. If it rolls 12 feet, it's a 12. What's fascinating here is that within the puddleized system, that Stimp value isn't just trivia to chat about in the clubhouse. It's a vital calibration reference.
A calibration reference, so it's literally doing the job of the measuring cups from our baking analogy.
It acts as the bridge connecting measured reality to your physical stroke execution. If you don't know the exact objective speed of the green, your brain is just guessing how much energy to transfer into the stroke.
You're just winging it.
Right. By knowing the Stimp value is a 10, you give your nervous system a known mathematical quantity to work with. You replace the subjective guess with a concrete parameter.
But wait, greens change throughout the day, right?
Hmm.
The morning dew burns off, the sun bakes the grass, the blades grow. Doesn't that render a morning stimp reading useless by the afternoon?
It doesn't render it useless at all. It actually makes it even more critical.
Really? How so?
Well, if you start your day knowing the Stimp is a 10, and by the 14th hole the green looks a little shiny and baked out, your brain has a baseline to adjust from. You can rationally calculate, okay, this is likely rolling closer to an 11 or 11 and a half now.
Ah, I see.
Without that initial 10 as an anchor, your brain is just floating in the abstract, reacting to visual cues that are highly deceptive.
That makes a lot of sense. You need a stake in the ground. So once we have that objective measurement, let's say we have our Stimp 10 baseline, how does that number actually dictate the physical behavior of the ball? Let's get into the physics.
Sure. Green speed dictates everything about the mechanics of your stroke and how the ball interacts with gravity. Let's look at the two extremes.
Okay.
On a very fast green, say a Stimp 12 or 13, the surface offers very little friction. Therefore, you require less force from the putter to move the ball a specific distance.
Less energy needed, so that translates to a shorter swing. That tracks logically.
But here is the critical variable.
Hmm.
Because the green is fast and friction is incredibly low, the ball remains in motion for a longer period of time to cover that same distance. It's just gliding across the surface.
Like it's on glass.
Exactly. And because it's rolling for a longer duration, gravity has more time to influence its path across any slope on that green.
Meaning fast greens produce significantly more break.
They expose the ball to the slope for a longer period. Conversely, look at a slow green, maybe to Stimp 7 or 8. High friction. You need to apply a lot more energy to the ball, which requires a much longer, firmer stroke.
Right, you really have to hit it.
And because the ball is traveling with more initial energy and decelerating rapidly due to that high friction, it reaches the hole much more quickly.
It spends less time rolling.
Less time rolling means gravity has less time to pull the ball down the hill. The result is significantly reduced break.
I want to make sure this really lands, because the penalized system distills this into a golden rule that I found honestly completely counterintuitive at first. The rule is break is a function of time, not just slope.
That is the absolute cornerstone of understanding how a ball moves on a putting surface. The longer the ball is in motion, the more it will break.
Because we get so caught up in looking at the steepness of the hill.
We do, but the steepness only matters in relation to how long the ball is exposed to it.
Let's apply this to the real world. Imagine you are driving a car across a steeply banked curve on a racetrack. If you drive incredibly fast, which would be the equivalent of hitting a firm, high-energy putt on a slow green, your car's momentum shoots it straight across that banked curve.
Right. Gravity simply doesn't have time to pull your car down the slope.
Exactly. But if you try to drive across that exact same banked curve very, very slowly, like hitting a delicate soft putt on a lightning-fast Stimp, 12 green gravity completely takes over. Your car gets pulled all the way down the embankment before you reach the other side.
That analogy perfectly captures the physics.
Mm-hmm.
The physical slope of the banked curve never changed. The only thing that changed was the speed of the car and therefore the time the vehicle spent on the slope.
And we see this exact phenomenon vividly when we compare uphill putts to downhill putts, right? The sources explicitly call out that uphill and downhill dynamic. Walk us through this lens of time.
Well, take a standard uphill putt. You are fighting gravity the entire way, so you are forced to hit the ball with significant energy.
You have to hit it hard just to get it there.
Right. Because of that initial burst of energy, the ball travels from your putter to the hole incredibly fast. It spends very little time on the slope. Therefore, it breaks very little. You can aim much closer to the hole.
And the downhill putt is the nightmare scenario.
It is the reverse physics. Gravity is assisting the ball, so you strike it very softly. The ball just creeps along the grass, rolling and rolling and rolling. taking a painfully long time to reach the hole,
And that extended roll time allows gravity to heavily influence the path.
leading to massive break. You have to aim much further outside the hole to account for all that time gravity's pulling the ball sideways.
So understanding that time fundamentally controls the break completely changes the objective of putting. It means distance control isn't just about avoiding a three-putt by leaving it close. Distance control literally dictates the physical path the ball takes.
Yes.
If your energy is wrong, your time is wrong, and therefore your line is wrong.
Which is exactly why the Puttleize system treats the targeting of a putt as a highly structured, integrated system. It completely rejects the amateur approach of just looking at the hole and hitting it. Instead, it breaks a putt down into 3 distinct pillars.
Let's get into those 3 pillars. What are the parameters we need to be calculating?
The first pillar is the aim point. This is simply the initial starting direction of the putt. It is the geometric line you intend to launch the ball on right off the putter face.
Okay, pretty standard. What's the second?
The second is the distance point. This is the intended rollout target. Imagine the hole is covered up where it just isn't there to get in the way. Where would the ball ultimately come to rest based on the energy you applied?
Wait, hold on. Why separate aim point and distance point? If I'm aiming at a spot, isn't that my distance? You're losing me a bit here.
It's a vital distinction because they require different neurological calculations. Your aim point is a directional calculation based on the geometry of the slope. Your distance point is an energy calculation based on the friction of the grass.
Oh, I see.
Amateurs conflate the two. They look at a spot 3 feet to the right of the hole, and they hit the ball at that spot. But if the putt is downhill, hitting the ball all the way to spot 3 feet right means you've applied way too much energy.
The ball will just blow right through the break and fly past the hole.
Exactly. By separating them, you allow your brain to choose a direction and separately calculate the energy required to reach the hole on that specific path.
Okay, I see. Direction versus energy. What is the third pillar?
The third pillar is target speed. This is defined as the exact velocity of the ball at the precise moment it reaches the front edge of the hole. And in the Puttleize philosophy, target speed is the fundamental key to everything.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the research stresses that getting this target speed wrong has devastating consequences, even if your initial aim point was absolutely flawless.
It ruins the whole putt.
Right. And the materials mention an optimal capture speed of about 3 to 4 RPS revolutions per second as it reaches the hole. Break down what happens at the extremes if we miss that target. What happens if I strike a putt just a little too softly?
If you strike a putt too softly, you immediately alter the time dynamic we just established. The ball remains in motion longer than you originally calculated. Because it is moving slower and taking longer, gravity takes over.
So it breaks too much.
The ball becomes far more affected by the slope than you intended. This leads to excessive break. Your ball wanders off your perfectly chosen line, and you miss the putt on the low side.
Wow.
And it's crucial to recognize you missed entirely because of a failure in energy transfer, not a failure in your ability to read the green.
That is so frustrating. You read it perfectly, aimed perfectly, but the energy was slightly off, so time changed the geometry. The natural amateur instinct there is, well, I don't want it to break too much and miss low, so I'll just hammer it, I'll hit it firm and take the break out of it.
That's what everyone does.
But the sources warn heavily against this. What is the mathematical problem with striking the putt too firmly and blowing past that 3 to 4 RPS target speed?
It's true that a firm putt reduces roll time, which reduces the break.
Yeah.
The ball will hold a straighter line. But by hitting it firmly, you are physically shrinking the effective size of the hole.
Shrinking the hole, let me push back on that. A standard golf hole is exactly 4.25 inches wide. The laws of physics don't change just because my golf ball is moving a little faster. The hole is still 4.25 inches.
The physical hole doesn't change, no, but the capture width drastically changes. Yes, the hole is 4.25 inches wide, but that is only true if the ball is moving at the perfect dying speed, that optimal 3 to 4 revolutions per second to drop in from any angle over the edge.
Ah, okay.
Think about the lip of the cup. If a ball is moving too fast, it has too much forward momentum to allow gravity to pull it down into the hole before it crosses the 4.25-inch gap.
So it becomes a battle between a forward momentum and downward gravity.
Exactly. If a fast-moving ball hits the absolute dead center of the hole, it might hit the back of the plastic cup and drop.
Ah.
But if that fast-moving ball enters slightly off-center, say an inch to the left or right,
Yeah.
it doesn't have time to drop.
It just lips out.
It hits a lip, uses it like a ramp, and lips out, or it just skips right over the edge entirely. So by hitting it too firmly, you might have held your line, but you have practically reduced that 4.25-inch hole to a 1-inch target.
You've taken all your margin for error and thrown it out the window.
You've ruined your distance control, you've drastically lowered the probability of capturing the ball, and if you miss, you end up with a 4-foot high-stress putt coming back.
So target speed, hitting that 3 to 4 RPS at the hole, is this razor-thin Goldilocks zone. It defines how the ball physically interacts with the cup, balancing your make percentage with leaving a manageable tap-in if you do happen to miss.
That is the ultimate goal, yes.
All of this math, the physics of time and gravity, the Stimp values, it makes brilliant sense on paper. But we are not robots. How does a human being with a nervous system and adrenaline actually train their body to execute this flawless target speed?
That is the crucial step, and it's honestly where most coaching falls short. Bridging theory and physical execution. The Puddleized system isn't just a textbook of physics concepts, it's a highly structured neurological training protocol.
And the curriculum is broken down into 5 one-hour sessions, right?
Yes, with each session isolating a specific key performance area.
And the materials are very strict about the fact that independent practice between these chapters is absolutely mandatory. You can't just listen to a lecture, nod your head, and go shoot a 72.
It's impossible. You have to practice independently.
Yeah.
Because you are literally trying to rewire your brain. You have to take the abstract theory and physically wire it into your motor cortex.
So what does this all mean for the practical day-to-day routine of a player? Let's say I'm an ambitious amateur working with a certified Puddleized coach. What does that training actually look like on the practice green?
Well, this raises an important question about how the human brain actually learns distance. It's a process of neurological calibration. Precise distance control requires 3 specific elements firing together in sequence.
Which are?
First, you need objective recognition of the green speed. Second, you must select the correct amount of stroke energy. And third, you have to execute that energy with a stable, repeatable rhythm or tempo.
So we're back to the Stimp meter.
We are always back to the Stimp meter. In fact, a Puddleized coach is required to physically demonstrate the green speed with a Stimp meter during every single training session. It is completely non-negotiable.
Let me stop you there. Why is it so vital to physically see it? If I'm paying a top-tier coach, why can't they just walk up to me and say, hey, I rolled it this morning, the green is a 10 today, adjust your stroke? Why do we have to go through the theater of setting up the aluminum ramp?
Because merely hearing the number 10 engages your logical brain, but it does absolutely nothing to calibrate your spatial awareness or your nervous system.
Oh, I see.
When the coach sets up that Stimp meter on the practice green, and you physically stand there and watch that golf ball roll down the ramp and travel exactly 10 feet across the grass, something profound happens neurologically.
It connects the visual to the physical.
It creates a direct, hardwired connection between your visual perception, watching the ball slow down and stop, and the measured reality of the friction. Your brain sees the speed of the green objectively, without any interference from your own biased putting stroke.
It's giving the brain an anchor, an undeniable piece of reality.
Exactly. Once your brain has that visual anchor, it can accurately calculate the exact stroke energy required. And then you deliver that energy using a stable rhythm.
Which is why the sources note that serious and professional golfers should be regularly measuring green speed with a Stimp meter during their own practice, right?
Yes, for this exact reason. You are continuously, obsessively training that connection between what is visually seen, what is mathematically measured, and how the body physically responds.
It's taking the guesswork out of the entire loop. You see the objective measurement, your brain registers the friction of the surface, you select the energy, and you apply it with consistent tempo. Let's talk about that tempo for a second. If my rhythm is erratic, if I am jabbing at the ball on one hole and flowing through it on the next, I assume all of this falls apart.
Completely falls apart. Rhythm is the delivery system for the energy. If you have the best Stimp reading in the world and you calculate the energy perfectly, but your delivery system is broken, the distance control fails.
The time the ball spends rolling changes.
Right. The exposure to gravity changes,
Yeah.
the break changes, and you miss the putt.
It is a delicate ecosystem. Every single piece relies entirely on the other. I've spent years watching guys grind on the putting green, trying to find some magical spark. But synthesizing everything we've unpacked today, it's clear that distance control on the golf course is not some inherent talent. It isn't a mystical feel that you either wake up with or you don't.
No, it's a trainable, measurable skill.
It is an intersection of objective measurement, using the Stimp value to understand the exact friction of the grass beneath your feet. It's an understanding of physics, recognizing that break is a function of time, not just the slope of the hill. And finally, it's a calibrated brain and body connection where you match your stroke energy to that objective data using a stable rhythm.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of a golfer's overall performance, mastering this puddleized system does something incredible for your scorecard. It strikes the perfect mathematical balance between your make percentage capturing the ball in the hole and your lead distance when you inevitably miss.
Because it keeps you in that optimal 3 to 4 RPS capture speed.
Exactly. By optimizing that target speed, you are effectively eliminating the three-putt. You remove the massive scoring instability that plagues amateurs. You are no longer bleeding strokes on the green simply because you misjudged the transfer of energy.
Which brings us right back to the big promise we started with, saving at least one stroke per round by shifting from art to science.
And it really is a science.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, something that extends even beyond the golf course. The puddle system essentially proves that what we so often elevate and revere as feel, that instinct we trust so blindly, is really just uncalibrated data.
That's a great way to put it.
It's our brain making a sloppy guess because it lacks an objective measurement. It begs the question, if you can completely transform your putting, save strokes, and eliminate intense frustration simply by swapping subjective guessing for objective measurement, what other areas of your golf game, or honestly, even your daily life, are you leaving up to feel when you should really be getting out the measuring tape?